Coming up on this episode of the Ball Diamond Podcast, we'll circle the bases to get you caught up on the latest standings and news and notes from around Major League Baseball. Then we will talk about the biggest heartbreaks that I have suffered watching the game of baseball. And as always, we will wrap things up with our series of the week. All that and more coming up right here on the Ball Diamond Podcast. Welcome into this episode of the Ball Diamond Podcast. Glad to be here with you today. The beautiful weather, or some beautiful weather we've been having here in the Windsor Essex area. It's been a little bit rainy, but it's also been a week that's felt like spring. Been in the 70s, 75. Sun's been shining. Yeah, like I said, a little bit rainy here and there, but a little rain didn't hurt anybody. Some beautiful weather here in the Windsor Essex area. And the game of baseball has been able to be played in full swing, and we've seen some upticks in home runs, some upticks in some offense, some players starting to get hot in Major League Baseball, which is always a good sign heading into the dog days of summer. So we will lead off, obviously, with circle the bases, I should say, and then following that Maple Leafs disaster, that collapse the Leafs had against the Montreal Canadiens, I will talk to you about my most heartbreaking, moments as a fan, in terms of baseball, and then we will end the show with our series of the week, which I don't actually believe that we ended our last episode on, but we will get into that at the end of this episode. But before we do that, we've got to take care of some business, and that business is reminding you that you can stay connected to the Ball Diamond Podcast through our social media pages, Facebook Ball Diamond Podcast, both Instagram and Twitter at Ball Diamond Pod. So it is time now for Circle the Bases, brought to you by J-Man Sports. Circle the Bases on the Ball Diamond Podcast. We start at first base, and we will be updating you on the current standings in each division. We'll start with the AL East, where the Rays hold a 2-game lead over the Boston Red Sox. In the American League Central, the Southsiders, they lead the Indians by 3 games. And in the American League West, it's Oakland clinging to a 1-game lead over Houston. To the National League we go, the NL East. The Mets are holding a firm 3.5-game lead over the Atlanta Braves. In the National League Central, the Cubs have jumped ahead of the Cardinals by 1.5 games. And the 3 best records that you can find in the National League will reside in the National League West, where the surprise Giants lead the Padres by 1 game, and they hold a 2-game lead over the defending champs. To second base we go to get you caught up on the latest news and notes. Good news for the Dodgers as they welcome back Cody Bellinger to the lineup. He'd been out since April 5th with a fracture in his fibula. The Phillies are hopeful that starter fielder Bryce Harper can return soon. He's been out since May 25th with a bruised wrist. And finally, the Pirates moved their top prospect Ke'Bryan Hayes to the 60-day DL with a left wrist injury that he suffered back on April 4th against the Cubs. The Pirates were hopeful that Hayes would return soon, but while doing some recent batting work, he re-suffered the injury. To third we go to give you the American League and National League Player of the Month award winners. In the American League, the award went to Blue Jays second baseman Marcus Semien, while in the NL, the honor went to Padres star shortstop Fernando Tatis Jr. As I take you home, I'll tell you about Lou Gehrig's Day. So on June 2nd, 2021, Major League Baseball held the first annual Lou Gehrig's Day to remember and celebrate the Iron Horse and to bring awareness to the, quote, bad break, unquote, he suffered from and ultimately died from, which was ALS. Now, why June 2nd, you might ask yourself, did Major League Baseball decide to hold this day? It was the day the Iron Horse took over at first base for the New York Yankees, a position that Lou Gehrig would go on to play for 2,130 consecutive games. And that was Circle the Bases. Circle the Bases is brought to you by J-Man Sports, any and all things sports. So if you follow other sports other than baseball, if you've been following hockey, the hockey playoffs have been going on. And with the travel restrictions due to COVID, they had to switch some divisions. They basically just completely switch all their divisions up. And so now they have a Canadian division this year with all the Canadian teams, right? And the favorite to win that division were the Toronto Maple Leafs. You could also throw in the Winnipeg Jets as well. They were also a favorite to come out of that division as well. And so in the first and second rounds of the postseason this year, teams are playing their divisional opponents. So the top 4 teams in each division moved on into the postseason, and then the postseason, obviously the top team played the top seed, played the 4th seed, the 2nd seed played the 3rd seed. And then in the second round, whoever moved on would play each other, and then it would get into the divisions would start mixing. Now all season long, okay, these teams played each other. So in the Canadian division, the Maple Leafs played all the Canadian teams. They played the Oilers, the Flames, the Canucks, the Canadiens, the Jets, the Senators. They played all the Canadian teams over and over and over and over and over again, and that happened throughout the NHL. You had the South Division. You had all these other divisions in the United States, and again, they just continued to play the 6 or 7 teams in that division all throughout the season. So when they got to the postseason, they knew each other fairly well. And so the Leafs were matched up against the Canadiens, first time in a very long time that the two rivals had actually been facing off against each other. Now again, the Leafs were the top seed. They were projected to move on. They were projected actually to win the series pretty easily. And throughout the first 3-4 games, the Leafs looked pretty good. They the first 4 games, I believe they outscored the Canadiens like 13-3 or some crazy thing like that, crazy number like that. They held a 3-game-to-1 lead over the Canadiens the first 4 games of the series. But all of a sudden, the Canadiens went on to win Game 5. So Leaf fans were kind of like, okay, that's, back in Montreal, makes sense. Well, then the Canadiens won Game 6. And they're starting to get a little bit nervous. The Maple Leafs have not moved on at all in the postseason since 2004. They made it past the first round. And they haven't won a Stanley Cup since 1967. Leaf fans starting to get a little bit nervous. In Game 7, back in Toronto, they actually allowed 550 vaccinated healthcare workers to watch the Leafs, maybe try to revive them a little bit in the series. But it wasn't enough, as the Canadiens went on to win Game 7, and they advanced on to play now the Winnipeg Jets for the North Division title. And in all honesty, for Leaf fans, I've been there, where it feels so deflating. For Montreal Canadiens fans, it's exciting, it's great, woohoo, they'll remember it forever, they'll celebrate it forever. But for Leafs fans, it's so deflating to watch your team just dwindle away a lead, whether it be a series lead or a game lead or whatever it may be. It's so deflating when it happens in the postseason. And for me, it comes from more baseball terms, because baseball is my favorite sport. And it goes with the 2012 and the 2013 Detroit Tigers. Because 2012, Tigers swept the New York Yankees. Okay. 2011, the Tigers made it to the American League Championship Series. They took on Texas, and the Rangers beat them. Nelson Cruz became their enemy. Tigers couldn't get him out. Specifically, Justin Verlander couldn't get him out. And it was very frustrating to watch the Rangers go to the World Series. 2012, they come back. They sign Prince Fielder. They have a very good season. They win the American League Central. They beat the A's in 5 games. Then they sweep the Yankees. Derek Jeter got hurt in Game 1 of that series. And then they sit there and they wait. They wait to see if they're going to play the Giants or the Cardinals. And the Cardinals, and it ended up being the Giants that ended up beating the Cardinals in 7 games. And it's the Giants that get to go on to the to the World Series, right? And it was frustrating because a factor that helped the Giants kind of beat the Tigers was the fact the Tigers had to wait over a week for the Giants because, again, the Giants were in a longer series than the Tigers were in. But what made it so deflating was everybody knew the Tigers were better than the Giants. Like, everybody knew it. And it was frustrating. And that image of Miguel Cabrera striking out on the Sergio Romo slider and the Giants celebrating at Comerica Park the World Series victory in 2012, it was deflating. I was in grade 9, or I was a freshman in high school, and I remember game 1, I stayed home from a big party to watch it, and I got made fun of after that because the Tigers lost big in game 1. Verlander gave up 3 home runs to Pablo Sandoval. Tigers lost big in game 1, and people were like, well, why did you stay home and watch it? Because I was so jacked. I was so ready for the Tigers to win. I was ready for them to watch them finally win a World Series, first time since '84. I mean, yes, I knew the Tigers went to the World Series in 2006, but I was so young at that time that I couldn't really get behind the team. So this was like my version of the 2006 team. I was so excited. I loved Prince Fielder, loved Miguel Cabrera, Justin Verlander. I loved that team. And then to see them get swept by the Giants still frustrates me to this day. And then you get 2013. 2013 probably frustrates me more because 2011 they go to the American League Championship Series against the Rangers. They lose. 2012 they get to the World Series, but they lose. So now you're thinking, hey, you know what? Tigers are going to get to the World Series in 2013. They bring basically everybody back. They're going to go to the World Series in 2013, and they're going to win it because that's just the way that it has to go, right? And they get behind in that series against Boston. I thought they were better than Boston, but they get behind in that series, in the American League Championship Series. But they got Game 6 in Boston. They've got Max Scherzer, who, if again, you looked at him in Verlander, it was 1A, 1B. Right? Verlander, 2011 American League MVP and Cy Young Award winner. But in 2012, they were both very, very good. 2013, they were both very, very good. The whole pitching staff, or the whole pitching rotation, I should say, was very, very good for the Tigers, those kind of 3 seasons. And I was ready, and I thought the Tigers, if they could win Game 6 and force a Game 7, I thought that they could win Game 7. And what was so frustrating was after 6 innings and Scherzer pitching a gem, not allowing a run, he goes up to Jim Leyland and says that he's done, can't pitch anymore, and that is the singular reason why I don't like Max Scherzer anymore, because the bullpen comes in, they implode, and Tigers end up losing that game. They ended up obviously then losing the series because Boston was up 3-2, and it was you felt like it was over. You felt like it was done. Fielder was then traded in that off season, and I wasn't happy about that. Fans got on Fielder for comments that he made after the series, which I still don't understand. He just basically said that he's not going to hold his head low because he's got to hold his head up high for his sons, and that there's more to life than the game, and fans did not like it that he said that. Then he was traded. It was unfortunate. Jim Leyland ended up leaving, and it was like, it was so deflating and so frustrating. Very frustrating. And again, the singular reason why I don't like Max Scherzer is because of that. And look, there are other fans that are going to tell you, look, like Yankee fans, the 2004 series with the Red Sox. I mean, famously, right? Yankees up 3-0. Red Sox come storming all the way back. They win the series. They go on to the World Series. They end up breaking the curse. Yankee fans sitting there feeling deflated. You could also say the Yankees, the 2001 World Series, where the Yankees and Diamondbacks played each other, and Luis Gonzalez had a walk-off in Game 7 off Mariano Rivera to beat the Yankees in the 2001 World Series. I mean, just, oh my goodness. Then you got Cleveland Indians fans, right? You got the World Series against the Marlins back in the 90s, when again the Indians, they had Manny Ramirez and Jim Thome, and they could hit. They had a lot of star power, and they're going up against the Miami Marlins. The Indians are supposed to win that series, and again, it's another. Was it Craig Counsell that hits the game winner in Game 7 against the Indians, knocks them out? Then you go back to 2016. The Indians had a 3-1 lead in the series against the Cubs. Cubs come all the way back. And then in Game 7, right, the Cubs are winning Game 7. Rajai Davis hits a grand slam. And everyone in Cleveland's going, woo! Rajai Davis is the best, woo! And then the Cubs come back and they end up winning that game. They end up obviously winning the World Series. And it's just like, then you sit there and you're so frustrated. I mean, I think there are a lot of teams you could go back to the Dodgers, 2017, 2018. I mean, yes, the frustrating part of the both of those, both the Astros and the Red Sox both cheated basically to get those World Series. I think it's frustrating in itself, but those series are frustrating because you kind of thought the Dodgers were the best team in those series, and they were just wild with all the runs being scored off of all these bullpen guys, and it's disheartening when it happens. It just is, especially, again, when you know that you're the better team. Like, again, in the Leafs-Canadiens situation, the Leafs are the better team in the regular season, and they were the better team in the regular season this past year. But the Canadiens were built more for the postseason than what the Leafs were, and the Leafs choked it away. Just like I think the Tigers did in 2012 and 2013, because the Tigers, they were not a postseason. For as much as, yes, they got to the ALCS in 2011, 12, and 13, and then getting the World Series in 2012, if you really look at their offense was never great in the postseason. Prince Fielder never performed in the playoffs. Going back to his Brewers days, never performed in the playoffs. Miguel Cabrera was never great in the postseason, never what he was in the regular season. He was always seemed to be hurt in the postseason. And then you only had, Victor Martinez for 2 of those years, right? Because he ended up tearing his ACL in 2013, so he wasn't there for that series against the Red Sox. And then you could almost say their best postseason hitter was Austin Jackson, and he wasn't all that in a bag of chips. It was the rotation that carried him. It was Verlander, Scherzer, Pfister, and Sanchez that carried them. Because their bullpen was trash. And it was their rotation, because again, they beat the A's 2 straight seasons, 2012 and 2013, in Game 5s in Oakland, both times. And so you get all excited, and for Leaf fans, you kind of got a little bit excited because you kind of thought, all right, you know what, this sets up perfectly. You were the best team. You're playing a team that you beat in the regular season. Like, you are favored, that you're not going up against Boston anymore. Like, this sets up perfectly. And it just didn't happen. And it's just so deflating. Like I said, for me, my baseball, I guess the way that I can relate to in baseball terms would be the 2012-2013 Detroit Tigers, the World Series loss, and then the loss to the Red Sox in the American League Championship Series in 2013. Just so deflating. Well, we're going to end the program with our series of the week. Series of the week. Alright, there are a couple of nice series this weekend that are happening. Like the Dodgers and the Braves. That should be a very interesting matchup. And fairly decent pitching matchup as well from Atlanta. Sunday, you've got Bauer-Fried. Saturday, you've got Kershaw-Morton. And tonight, you got Urias and Anderson. So, it's a fairly decent pitching matchup. You start then looking around as well to some of the other series. I mean, I do think that the Mariners-Angels series is at least intriguing. I mean, you got Ohtani tonight going for the Angels. But I do think that is intriguing between the two bottom teams in the American League West. Can the Angels finally actually turn around? I mean, yeah, okay, you got Red Sox, Yankees, whatever. To me, that's overblown. You also got Astros and Blue Jays, which I think will be a very interesting series this weekend. Greinke and Ryu get it going tonight, 7:07 from I believe Buffalo. That's where the Blue Jays are now playing. But I'm gonna go with the Mets and the Padres, and it's basically because of the pitchers we're going to see in this series. So tonight, Blake Snell will be on the hill for the Padres. He's not really going up against much on the other side for the Mets. But it's Game 2. You got DeGrom, Musgrove. That's, to me, a very good pitching matchup. And then Sunday, you've also got Stroman going up against Paddock. So I think this is a good pitching matchup series between the Mets and the Padres. And then also, the Mets are leading the NL East right now by 3.5 games, which I don't know if many people would have thought that it would still be 3.5 games. The Braves still haven't gotten going. The Phillies have faced some injuries. The Marlins just haven't been able to just keep anything going. And so the Mets have been able to do this really without Francisco Lindor. And people are now starting to say that maybe Francisco Lindor is going to come out of this slump here. He's going to start to heat up. Could he get going in San Diego? And then you look at the Padres, and look, the Padres have the second best record in the NL. The only team that's ahead of them are the Giants, who are still somehow leading the NL West. And again, you got Fernando Tatis Jr. You've got this offense. Can Blake Snell start to get it going? He's only 1-2 on the season. Can he start to get it going? Can Musgrove continue to have the season that he's been having? So I think both ways. Look, if the Padres end up taking this series against the Mets, I mean, for one, depending on what happens with the Braves and the Dodgers, I mean that lead in the East could be a lot. Could be a lot closer, and the Padres could all of a sudden, maybe this jump starts them to take the lead in the West and finally get over the hump for the Giants. To me, it's a very intriguing series. As soon as I looked at the schedule today, and I was like, I see the Dodgers and Braves, I see the Astros and Blue Jays. Yeah, those are intriguing series. But when I saw the Mets Padres, I'm like, yeah, no, that's the series I'm gonna want to watch the most. I understand it's at first pitch is at 10:10, and I probably won't be able to stay up to watch it, but that's the series I'm going to be paying attention to this week. Well, if you're listening, thanks for supporting the podcast, and don't worry, you definitely will be hearing from me soon. Thanks.